Good afternoon. This is the 10th of March, and I'm with my long time friend Vivien, and we're sitting at a restaurant patio above the ocean at La Jolla at Cody's, and I'll pan around a little bit. You can see a bit of our view from the patio of the ocean, and then I'm gonna continue panning around and show you Vivien. And I've asked Vivien to talk a little bit about our 54-year-old friendship. So here's Vivien.
My goodness, it's been 54 years. That's frightening. But you're right, it's been a long friendship.
Tell me, Vivien, we were talking in the car beforehand, but you first came to California in the mid-60s as a teenager, right?
A little older than that, but yeah, close enough.
And you knew a Norwegian friend that you came here and lived with for a while.
That's correct. And
that was in Los Angeles somewhere.
Right, Los Angeles.
And then from there, you went back to Norway, and then you came back later.
Eventually came back, yes.
Yeah, and at that point, you got an apartment right next to University of Southern California, and you ended up living with my first wife, Nancy, and another high school classmate of mine, Alka, and then you got a job working in the
School of Business.
School of Business, which was right next door to where I was in dental school. And so we used to meet every once in a while for lunch.
That's correct.
And then we went from there, and by then I was dating Nancy, and I graduated and got married, and Nancy and I moved to Laguna Beach. But before that, she had a job as a teacher for a year, and you moved down to Balboa Island with her.
That's correct.
And then I dated her. On weekends, I would come down to Balboa Island. And then when we got married, we bought a VW bus in Germany and went to Germany, and Nancy talked German to all the 150 relatives in Germany. And we traveled around for 3 months, came back, and then I got an apartment in Laguna Beach. We lived there, and then I bought a house, and about a year later I got a divorce from Nancy, and I'm still living in the same house. So that's a little bit of my history. And tell me a little bit more about,
well,
from the business school, what did you do?
Well, I worked in the special Office of Executive Programs, and spent a lot of time there, off and on, because I would go off to Europe and spend a year or so in Europe, and then I come back. And I always had my old job back, so I had a wonderful boss who would hire me back.
Yeah.
And along the way, I met Scott, and he eventually moved to Houston. And then I moved to Houston, and we got married. We flew back to Norway, and we got married, and moved back to Houston, where we stayed for, I think we were there for 2 years. Our son Brand was born there. And then we moved to New Jersey, and we lived in New Jersey for about 7 years. Our daughter Tindy was born in New Jersey, and we moved to Michigan. And then we lived in Michigan for like 30 years. And finally moved down to Pawleys Island, South Carolina, where we have lived for we built a house, and we've lived there for the last almost 5 years, and love it. And I am now visiting our daughter Tindy in La Jolla Beach, because that is where she is living at the moment. She moves around, working remotely for Google, and so she's pretty much been able to live and work all over the country, and enjoys it. And sooner or later, I think she's going to end up here because she loves California. And spent the last year in Encinitas, which was very interesting because that's where I spent my first summer when I came over as a teenager, visiting my friend. And so it was fun to go back and revisit old haunts. So that's
Tell me a
pretty
little
much
bit about what Brand is doing.
Brand is running his own business within Saatchi & Saatchi, and it's actually Toyota, the advertising branch that Toyota has, and he is running his own company. He's the president of his own company within that big umbrella, and they live in Chicago and have 3 kids, the lights of our life, Damon, Marie, and Raider, who is named after my dad. And so that's their life. And like I said, Tindy's been working with Google and having a fantastic life.
Tell me a little bit about your two, your brother and your sister.
My brother Nicky lives in France half the year, in Oslo a part of the time, and in Chico, California, where with his wife Linda, who grew up in California, and their 2 sons are now living in Los Angeles and in San Francisco. And so that pretty much sums it up.
How about Christina?
Christina, oh yeah, Christina lives in Norway, has 2 daughters. They have 2 little kids apiece, and are enjoying life. Christina and Teddy, her husband, are in Madeira at the moment on vacation. So they're doing well, and like I said, enjoying life. Travel a lot. That
brings everything up to date.
And now I'm talking to Alan, and just delighted that he would take the time to come down to La Jolla.
Here I am, still listening to this fascinating story, and enjoying my lunch with Vivien.
Been a long time, Alan. It's been a long time since we saw each other.
Probably at least over 30 years.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Vivien. I'm going to